Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Sinato with Real Progressives. This evening, we have a special interview with Cheri Honkala. Cheri ran in March in a special election for state representative in Pennsylvania district in Philadelphia, and the Democratic Party that has a stronghold in Philadelphia really did pulled out the dirty tricks. Probably the what they're most known for is in stereotypes in terms of dirty political tricks. So Cheri, thanks for coming on this evening. So can you start off by telling our viewers a little bit about your background, your campaign, and what went down this past March?
After a series of different politicians having to step down already in the 197th district, which is the poorest district in Pennsylvania, I felt like I had no other choice but to step forward and throw my name in the hat and to run for state representative. Little did I know that they were going to be up to their regular fraudulent tricks here in the district. So it was very difficult. I went through a major loss of innocence. I had the best ground game. I had amazing field organizers. We raised over $100,000 in 2 months. We went to every single event. We had the most people at the various different voting booths working, you name it. But then we didn't know that they would be on the inside, giving people stamps right at the table for my opponent, Emilio Vasquez, and that they would actually be going inside the voting booth and, 3 or 4 people at one time, pushing the stamp for Emilio Vasquez. Since March, my life has been very difficult because I've had to wait on pins and needles. The district attorney's office is filing criminal charges. They've been talking to everybody, as well as the attorney general's office has been talking to everybody in the neighborhood as well. And people are afraid. And I just really want to thank the people that filled the courtroom the other day. We finally went to federal court. The judge said in anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, the judge will rule whether or not we go to trial. I'm hoping that he understands that these are all really the Voting Rights, Civil Rights Act violations, and that we deserve to have our day in court. Especially since we have hundreds of people that have come forward and said that on election day that they were harassed, intimidated, and that, there's other parts of the case I can't give away. There was a lot of money that was given out, that kind of stuff. But ever since March, they've, the Democratic Party has made my life a living hell. So whether it's my car, whether it's the IRS, whether it's my housing situation, whether it's whatever, they've been, figuring out every possible way to make me afraid. And to get me to drop out of this lawsuit. And actually, the night before I went to federal court, the state Republican Party pulled out of the case. And many people are saying that that's because of the powerful Congressman Brady here in Pennsylvania.
Well, Congressman Brady this past, a few months ago, and this is, a much broader issue in Philadelphia, but Robert Brady, allegedly paid off his primary challenger $90,000 in 2012 to drop out of the race, and the aide who covered that up and filed false FBC reports was arrested and pled guilty. Robert Brady, nothing happened to him. And unfortunately, this is just an ongoing trend in Philadelphia. Shaka Fatah went to jail last year after serving 11 terms in Congress. In your election, the two Democrats before resigned and pled guilty to corruption charges. You have the Philadelphia district attorney who opted not to run for re-election because he's under investigation. So there's a lot of corruption in Philadelphia. So, how are voters supposed to break through this, corrupt Democratic machine that really, cheats to make sure that the people that are in line with this machine are elected and, maintain their political power that way?
That's a good question. And I think that when people are feeling intimidated, they just have to hold on to their courage and not make their decisions based on fear. I know even walking out of the courtroom, even though 99% of the people that were in the courtroom were there in support of me, there was one person that was apparently sent by the Democratic Party who just started screaming as we left the courtroom. And some of the elected officials have yelled at me as well, saying, Cheri, it's been like this. It's always been like this. You just need to grow up and realize that it's been like this for decades before you came around, and it's going to be like this after you're dead and gone. And my 15-year-old son, Guillermo, I don't want him to hear that message. I don't want him to believe that the people that fought and died for our right to vote did it in vain. We have a responsibility to stand on the shoulders of those that fought for something as sacred as our right to go into the voting booth, close the doors, the curtains, and be able to vote for whoever the hell we want to vote for, regardless if they like it or not. How decisions are made right now in the 197th district is by about 5 people. It's a few of the ward leaders and our congressmen and a bunch of money, and that's how decisions are made. They are not made by going into the voting booth and people casting their votes. And I think that that's something really important that we have a responsibility to do something about and to change. And yes, I understand exactly how dangerous this thing is. They could easily, somebody could just, my neighborhood remains the poorest district because of the corruption. My neighborhood has the highest opiate problem, to the extent that, Dr. Phil and all of these other people have come into my neighborhood to deal with the opiate crisis. What they can do is just make me disappear. I'm very aware of that. But I think the thing is that there's something incredibly important. I've spent 30 years of my life trying to end poverty, hunger, and homelessness in my district. We're never going to do it as long as corporate America and corrupt politicians remain in power in this district. So that's why I'm taking on this fight. I'm not taking it on alone. And that's why our slogan is #WeAreThe197, because this issue impacts not just people in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania, but across the entire country. If people think this isn't going on in other places, I challenge you to wake up and really look at what happens inside the polling place on election day. We can look at what happened with Bernie during his election. We can look at many other elections across this country. Neighborhoods do not remain in impoverished and horrible conditions where there's one politician after another that has to step down because there's, you know, clean politics and clean elections that are happening. So I'm really asking people, I need your help because I know one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to try and bleed us dry financially so that we're not able to challenge this thing in court. When we walked into court, there was 7 of the most shiny shoes, expensive lawyers that you could possibly imagine. And then the rest of the courtroom was those of us that live in the 197 that don't have $1.97. So I'm asking, you know, people that are watching this, if you could please go to Cheri, CHERI 197.com. Again, that's CHERI 197.com. Donate $1.97, $27. Donate $197. Whatever you possibly can, we need your support.
And there's a story this past week that independents and third-party voters outnumber Republicans now in India. You know, what are some of the ways that the Green Party is and you are, you know, working to mobilize that support for, you know, outside and third parties and independents in response to a Democratic Party in Philadelphia that's very corrupt, you know, focuses on their own interest and you know, wealthy donors and corporate interests in Philadelphia, and really it ignores the voters to the point where it's really built this this apathy where you have low voter turnout and nothing really changing as far as the status quo is concerned.
You know, I think we always have to crawl before we walk. And I understand. I was a Democrat most of my life. For the folks that are telling me, Cheri, the Democratic Party can be reformed, I'll believe that when they take money out of politics. Until we take money out of politics, I don't believe that for 1 minute. So I don't want corporations making decisions. They have been making decisions for the elected officials in my district, which isn't uplifting the lives of people, ending the opiate crisis, ending mass incarceration, poverty, and homelessness. That hasn't happened. For over 60 years in this district, it has been a living hell. And so, you know, we here in our district, we cannot afford to do something the old way. And the old way is staying in a two-party system, you know, that basically represents Pepsi and Coke and doesn't represent the rest of us and our interest. So we've been doing something that is brand new, believe it or not, to the Democrats in this community, but we've been knocking on every single door. We have not stopped knocking on every door. We did robocalls the other day saying, you know, hi, this is Cheri Honkala in English and in Spanish, to basically tell people, well, I guess Emilio Vasquez is not going to tell you that there's a federal court hearing on Thursday. Because he did not let his constituents know that there was a federal court hearing challenging his election. But we did. And we are going to fight like hell to try and keep the people in this district awake, because their lives matter. And the only way that we're going to change things is when we begin to hear from the people that are actually impacted by these issues. Most of these politicians don't even live in this district, don't spend any time in this district. Nobody knows who they are. And so we're, visiting people and we are going to continue to keep people updated on the website. People can get a hold of me at cheri197.com. They can volunteer. They can go door knocking with us. I want to encourage people to write editorials in both the English and the Spanish newspapers. This is not going to be on CNN. It's not even going to make it on the local news. And so it's incredibly important that we let people know that there was a stolen election in the 197. It was a sad day when I woke up the day after the election and I received at Emilio's victory party, and he had sent me a photograph of my votes that were supposed to be delivered by the Philadelphia Police Department down to the commissioner's office in whatever safe location that you're supposed to take the votes at the end of the night. But that's only one of hundreds of horrendous things that happened on March 21st. And together, I am very hopeful. I'm no pie in the sky person. My life is very pragmatic. I'm very practical. But I see a growing number of people that are tired of remaining
And when can people expect to start seeing in court? Like you said, there's not going to be big media coverage on it. But what can they look for to start seeing in court? A lot of this evidence, hopefully, be exposed and have the Democratic Party have to defend themselves against it in public. And have to, engage it that way, because obviously they've ignored and dismissed any of the complaints.
Well, one thing that we were very excited about is the 7 lawyers that were there thought that they were just going to walk in there and tell the judge, we want to throw this out and leave and go home and have drinks or whatever. But instead they had to sit there for 90 minutes and realize that the judge was not sending them home able to tell the people that they were representing, the ward leaders and the politicians, because we were representing the people.
Well, for anyone watching, I posted that site in the comments.
Yeah, they should be watching that because we will keep people updated. But anywhere from like 2, 4, 6 weeks, the judge will let us know if we go to trial. And then that's when the real fight begins. Because, they're not going to stop at their intimidation, trying to get people not to testify. And that's when we're really going to need people's support. Because people are going to take the stand and they're going to tell the truth about what has been happening in elections for this last election and many others before this. but so blatantly this last March 21st in the special election for the state representative.
And is there anything else you'd like people to know about the lawsuit or your experiences in the past year before we sign off?
I just want to encourage people to really understand how elections work. Understand, who are the elected folks that are inside, who's getting paid, who's supposed to be doing what happens to your votes at the end of the night. It's not just a matter of going into the booth and pushing the button for who it is that you want. At some point, if this doesn't change, we're really going to begin to call for international observers. I was an election observer in El Salvador and in Venezuela. I think it's high time we get election observers here in this country, especially in impoverished communities where people are threatened when they don't want to vote for the machine candidate.
Oh, we had technical difficulties, so hopefully everyone else caught that. But just to conclude, Cheri and the Green Party filed that lawsuit this past week in federal court. So we'll try to keep people updated on any developments on our Facebook page. Cheri, thank you again for coming on this evening and spending some time to speak with us about the lawsuit. And thank you for your efforts in trying to hold the Democratic Party accountable. Just before we go, I missed the last part. But is there anything else before we go that you would like people to know, not just about the lawsuit, but instances like this have happened within the Democratic Party even itself. You had Kimberly Ellis in California. She for Democratic Party state chair. That they've treated her like crap and really used their own superdelegates to suppress her candidacy. In Florida, the Democratic Party chair raised the same exact thing. And you've had complaints, even in special elections where in primaries it's really a broken record, the same old story where if Democrats have the power to manipulate elections, they will not stop from doing it. So what advice would you give other people in different parts of the country to not only keep an eye out for this, but what to do when they do see instances like this happening?
I think it's really important that you be vigilant, that you document everything that you see. This is why recounts are really important because they're a critical safeguard, and we need transparency in our voting system. So, I want to encourage people to fight for that transparency. They're going to try to bleed us dry. And some people are like, well, don't waste the money in fighting this thing. Well, I want people to remember people like Fannie Lou Hamer, who was sick and tired of being sick and tired. The people here in the 197th district are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're not just dealing with, poverty and the opiate crisis and all of those kinds of things. We can't even decide who it is that we want in elected office. And those things are not going to change unless we fight for our rights to vote. So this is something that we really need people's support. And I'm hopeful because we're going to rise up. There's no place else to go.
All right, well, thank you again, Cheri, for coming on this evening. For everyone watching, check out our website, follow her on social media. I'm Mike Sinato. Everyone watching, enjoy your weekend. Thanks again, Cheri.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Bye.